a chance, go ahead. There at
Oh, sorry, guys.
Yeah, it's very.
We ready to go? All right. Good afternoon. This is the committee meeting, multi-committee meeting for the Department of Administration. This is admin committee. At this point, gonna do a call the roll. Supervisor Lino.
Yes. Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Supervisor Bauer,
Here.
Supervisor Zahns, Supervisor Rogers.
Yes, I'm here.
Thanks, Mike. And myself, I'm Chair Vaughn Headland. We have all the committee members here and we have a quorum. So next we're going to move on. Approval of the minutes. Our last meeting was December 15th of 2022. Any questions? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion to approve. So move. Okay, motion by Mr. Lino and second by Supervisor Zahns. Any questions or comments, concerns? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes. Public comment. Do we have anyone who has sent in any public comment? Okay, move on to item 5 on our agenda. Staff reports. We have a staff report that has been sent out to us ahead of time. They came from finance, from our administration department, our human resources, our criminal justice collaboration division, the county treasurer, the county clerk, our IT department, and from our corporate counsel. Any questions for any of those reports by any of the supervisors?
Chairman, I have a question, if I may.
You certainly can.
All right. I noticed on Chris, your report, you were talking about new audit people. And just kind of wondering where geez, talk to the microphone. There you are.
Here.
So anyway, number 7, there's new audit folks. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. So we received notice in late October, I want to say, very close to the end of the year, that Clifton Larson Allen would not be renewing their contract with us to provide audit services. They, like a lot of other entities, are experiencing significant staffing challenges and did not feel like they would be able to meet expectations to fulfill their contract, to fulfill a contract with us. If you recall, we had some delays already for this year. And that we didn't, because I typically have the audit report prepared for presentation by July, and I believe we didn't get to that until September of this year because of the delays from CLA. So Beata and her team quickly turned around and put together a request for proposal for a new audit entity. They received, I think it went out to, well, it went out on the sites like VendorNet where anyone can pick it up, but it also was specifically sent out to a number of Wisconsin entities that do audit work. And we received no replies. And so kudos to Sarah Stabino, who circled back then to everyone that it had gone out to say, are you sure? And would you be interested in reconsidering? And a firm by the name of Kerber Rose then replied and said, yes, we were interested in submitting the first time to your RFP, but the process is pretty cumbersome for completing an RFP, and we didn't have time or resource to do that, but we would be interested in being your audit firm. And they represent, I believe they represent 4 other counties in the state and then about 260 municipalities. And so we did meet with them then and then chose to go with services through them. So we entered into a contract then with them for 2023, very late in the year. And they were here last week to do some of the pre-audit work, and seemed to do a great job.
All right, and have you reached out to any of the other counties that they do work for, or heard any feedback from them?
Honestly, I don't know if Beata and Sarah did that. I will be honest to tell you that I don't want to say beggars can't be choosers, but the reality of it was that at that late in the year, we needed to have an audit firm ready to go, because there's work that has to happen immediately after the beginning of the new year. So we're not in a long-term arrangement with them by any means, but as I indicated, thankfully at this point, and they are in actually both of our, I don't remember what they call them, principal people, both of our the lead people used to have worked for CLA in the past. And so they are familiar with them, or familiar with April. CLA gave them everything that they had as a starting spot in order to move forward. So in that sense, it was a relatively seamless transition.
All right, excellent. Thanks for that information. Now on your list, number 10, I see that we're investigated into a new investment firm to handle the money. This is somebody other than PFM.
It is. We, so I don't know that it was with the intent necessarily of replacing PFM, but there was a bit of confusion on my part, which led to us having a meeting with this new entity. So this entity by the name of PMA regularly sends out sales tax summaries, investment information, very helpful and timely correspondence. In my brain, PMA was PFM. And so I reached out to them and said, could we set up a time so that our investment team of Beata, Sophia, and I could learn a little bit more about kind of the things that we had questions about. And they said, sure. And we set up a time. And then Sophia said, you do recognize that PMA is not PFM. And I'm like, well, no, I guess I don't. But at this point in time, we will meet with them and hear what they have to say. So we met with them and we're really impressed by the services that they offered. So I don't think that we're necessarily at this point in time looking to replace PFM, but also are looking at the potential of utilizing PMA for maybe some specific things. So for instance, when Sophia recently moved our CDs, a little bit of over $1 million worth of CDs, she went out and did all that research for the best rates on her own. This PMA has a whole piece where they will just put the rates out. They'll just put a request out for bid and turn it around and give us the recommendations of who would give us the highest rate of return. So they have some efficiencies that I think will be helpful, could potentially be helpful to us. We are going to bring forward next month. We will bring forward a resolution to add them as an option to our repertoire.
Okay, so we haven't necessarily switched over those $6 million in assets then?
No, not at all. And in fact, we can't. I mean, there has to be a resolution to allow us to use them. And we had no intention at this point in time of switching over those assets. We were looking at giving in a try for some of the smaller, more segregated funds that we have. Like for instance, we have about $200,000 right now sitting of opioid funds. Just to sort of see what it looks like and what the correspondence, what the feedback kind of, I think that Sophia has had mixed results of feedback from PFM, and we're just looking to see what someone else does.
Right. Well, I think the main, thing that kind of sticks into my craw is PFM charges us $1,250 a month to manage those assets, and I'd be very interested to see what some other firm would charge us for asset management fees.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, so we're exploring our small group of Sophia and Beata and I have been spending a fair amount of time together, just making sure that we're all on the same starting page of understanding where our money is and how it's being handled as it currently exists, and whether there are some changes to be made with that, to recommend with that.
All right, thank you very much for that, Chris. I am done.
Supervisor Rogers, you should mute your mic so we're not seeing you driving down the road.
I thought I was muted.
All right, any other supervisors for any of the other reports?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. I just got a question for Andrew. I mean, you're working on this Badger books. Is that getting rid of all the paper? Is it gonna go paperless now in all Badger books?
Not yet. For the municipalities that wanted to buy in for the Badger Book training or the Badger Book component, we offered that as a option. But yeah, so we'll get rid of the paper poll book for any of those municipalities that signed up for it. We've got 14 municipalities of the 30 that have signed up for the Badger Book so far for the spring elections. The indication from the Wisconsin Election Commission is that we're going to have to move to the Badger Books. So I figured if we have some money to offer them to help with the purchasing, we should do it now. We can train in 2023 when there's only 2 elections, and then be ready by 2024 when we've got 4 elections and one of them a big one. So it'll eventually we'll get rid of the paper poll book. We will probably still do a paper poll book for the February primary, just in case anybody's got questions about the Badger books, or there's anything that goes wrong with them, but it'll eventually move away from that.
And how long do you have to hang on to ballots? Old
Ballots?
You go through the ballots. I was reading the thing here, and how long do you got to hang on? Is it months, years, or?
Yeah, so for every election, there's a 22-month retention cycle for
22
all the
months.
election materials, with the exception of 2020, which apparently we'll never be able to get rid of. Just taking up space someday. But so yes, there's a 22-month retention cycle. So any of the unused ballots from an election, the previous procedure was that the municipal clerks would just throw them away. We didn't really like how that might look if somebody saw in the trash there were a bunch of ballots. So we started to put a process that said, please bring back all of your extra election supplies. We will take care of them. Because we do have to keep any of the ballots that haven't been used for a short retention cycle after an election, and then we destroy them. We have them shredded. So, yep, you're welcome. Any other questions about that?
Just, it's something new and I don't know a whole lot about it, so that would be,
Yeah.
My concern. The people that have used them so far, what's the response?
People that have used them so far really like them. So Cheryl Miller from the town of Red Cedar, she ordered hers independently last year. She ended up with 4 of them for the town of Red Cedar for the size of their municipality. She really likes it. So we finished in the report, it had mentioned that we actually finished our last reconciliation for the election for fall on December 22nd, which was the very last day that you could do it, because we had the audit and we had a bunch of other things. Cheryl was able to take her Badger Book memory stick, plug it into her computer and reconcile the election in like 5 minutes. So versus going through and individually selecting every voter with the city of Menominee, which is huge, or the town of Menominee, which is large. It's a matter of minutes versus days and hours to reconcile an election. So it's been really helpful that way. I'm sure Cheryl really likes them. Karen Meyer from the town of Colfax also got them. She hasn't gotten hers yet, but she had ordered them. And the clerks all went to a training program last week there was an open house on Wednesday, and there was a training on Thursday that they all went to, and they all seemed really excited about it. Actually, a couple of the municipalities that ordered one Badger book were like, hey, can we get another one? So they seem to really like it. It'll be really handy. So it's an electronic poll book. It does everything that a regular election will do. It just should be more efficient. So for example, if you're a registered voter, Jim Zons shows up at the town hall to vote. All he would have to do is he still has to show his ID. He still has to state his name and address. And then what they can do is actually just scan his ID with a physical scanner. It'll bring up all of his information. Boom, here's your voter number. Here's your ballot, go. For anybody who needs to register, so for the city of Menominee, especially we saw a huge number of election day registrations this fall, as did town of Menominee, as did Red Cedar. Same thing, they can show their ID, you can scan it. If that address isn't correct and they have a utility bill or a bank statement, all they have to do is type it in. It takes election day registration from a 7 or 8 minute process down to usually about a 2-minute process. So it's a significant time savings as well. Because we saw, I stopped out to 8 of the different polling locations and almost all of them had lines throughout the day. So this should really help with the efficiency of the elections. And they're not hooked up to the internet. It's independent. There's no system that, it's not hackable. It's kind of like our voting tabulators. So that should be a really good system. It's secure. We will keep all that information here in-house as well in our vault. So it's a secure, more efficient system that we can use.
The only concern that I have is in the past, we've heard a lot about voter search off of list,
Sure.
cross-check some of these things that are out there at this particular point.
Yep.
How does this ensure that all of a sudden we don't get 200,000 people in the state of Wisconsin like disappeared off the voter list?
Yep. Well, so the Badger books won't be able to remove any voters. That's all the Wisconsin Election Commission.
Okay.
So it's all held there. So what municipalities will do is we will have their memory stick for the Badger book. We'll keep that in-house. And then what we'd actually do is we download the Badger book on our secure network to the memory stick, and then they use that for the election. Then after the election is completed, they bring that memory stick back to us. We upload it, and then we keep everything safe and secure. So the Badger book doesn't have an ability to purge anyone from a list or remove registrations or anything like that. It talks with the state system. So sort of that.
Okay.
The only time that, and really the only time that voters in Dunn County are removed is if they haven't voted after a series of elections, they get sent a postcard by the Wisconsin Election Commission. If that postcard comes back as undeliverable or they didn't respond to it, then that's when they become an inactive voter, but they're still part of the system. We don't ever purge people out of it.
Okay.
Yep. Good questions.
So they can actually, I'm sorry. can I just jump
Go ahead.
in? So actually, if they didn't vote here for 5 elections, but they moved to a different township somewhere down the road, then they just wanted to be registered, it would pull his name right up from
Yep.
the old list.
Yeah. So it'll pull their name up from the old list, but then it'll register them in their new municipality. And then when they register in a different place in Wisconsin, and actually anywhere in the nation, when they register, it will inactivate their old record. So if you lived here in the town of Dunn and moved to St. Croix County and registered to vote in Hudson, when you registered to vote in Hudson, it would automatically inactivate you in the town of Dunn.
So you can't vote twice, basically.
Can't vote twice. Yep. And if you do, very bad. You go to prison for a long time. So yeah, so that's that process. Yeah.
Email that all.
Yeah. There you go.
Yes. Cool. Any other questions about that? So we've got it.
Thank you, that was good.
Thank
Yeah,
you
you're
very
welcome.
much.
No problem.
You're on top of it. I like.
Thank you. Thank you much. Appreciate it. Anything else by the supervisors? Mike, you have anything?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
We've been hearing you the whole time as you've been driving around, and also occasionally seeing your face pop up on the screen with shots of the sky behind you. So as you try to figure out that mobile app, that's what you got going for you right now. You did turn your camera off once, but kept your microphone on, just so you know that. Like right now.
All right. Any of the staff have anything for us they want to update or present? Part of the reports? All right. Just going down through, hopefully, you noticed, supervised noticed that under HR, there is a section there where we had to, they did an extension of a staff member who is filling in at the jail on a basically part-time. That's going to probably be through, they've asked for the rest of the year because of the short staff at the jail. And there was also a compensation equity pay adjustment made for one of the nurses. So they got that up to date. Anything else that the supervisors saw? If not, we'll.
As
Go ahead.
long as you brought it up about the limited term employee, how long do they gotta be part-time? I mean, before you make them full-time, or don't you have to make them full-time after a certain period of time? In the union, is there any agreement or anything like that, or?
No, the only union we have is with the sheriff's deputies. And there is no part-time employment very often leads to full-time employment because supervisors get to see the work of employees and know what they can do. But there's no requirement that part-time employees must be promoted to full-time employees. Limited term employees are hired generally for a specific and shorter time period. So they're hired to, like, we have full-time employees, we have part-time employees who are on the payroll and they just work part-time throughout the year and then next year. And then we have limited term employees who are, they're hired to perform for typically 3 months. And then I think the Committee on Administration is allowed to extend that for 3 months. Or maybe the county manager can extend it for 3 months. But the expectation is that their employment here will be of a relatively short duration, finite time period. What we found is a little bit more over the past couple of years, employees or vacancies are getting harder to fill sometimes. And so we have, or projects don't get completed that a limited term employee was maybe working on. And so what happens is they get extended a little, but there's no obligation to, to extend or to rather to transfer them to full-time employment. They would have to apply like anyone else interested in a job.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious about that. Thank you for the explanation.
Anything else? Okay, hearing none. Next, then, we've got consideration of actions to be taken by this committee and review the vouchers. Was there anything that any of the supervisors had questions about anything that appeared on the list of vouchers? Supervisor, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have multiple ones here at this
Okay.
particular time. Under 1110, just on the first page, probably about 5 or 6 down, we see subscriptions, JJ Keller and Associates Incorporated for $2,387. And just wondering what kind of subscriptions? I mean, is this Toys Life, Time Magazine?
I know J.J. Keller does
can-
like, they do like trucking related
Yes, sir.
safety video things, I
Okay.
believe, so.
Jenna's got an
can-
answer for you.
Good, John.
Hello, so that, we actually, subscribe our required labor law posters, through JJ Keller. That's a 3-year subscription, and that's for, I believe, 13 posters that we have to have posted throughout the different facilities. So that is a standard cost that occurs about every 3 years. And the subscription basically just guarantees that we keep receiving the most up-to-date versions of those posters that are required either federally or by the state of Wisconsin.
Okay, thank you. Also underneath 1110, under financial reporting, maintenance contract for Phoenix Business Incorporated. I see one here at the bottom of the page for 4420. And then if you look on the next page, we see another one for 5,500 even for Phoenix Business Incorporated. And I'm kind of wondering, is this a 2-month billing, or is this, you know, something else?
Is this our computer support company?
I'm thinking it is.
Phoenix is the consultant that we use to help us keep SAP alive. Well, Dan keeps it alive, but Phoenix helps us utilize it.
They help make it better.
Yeah.
So we do have an annual subscription with them, but those costs are likely specific projects that are billed on an hourly basis. My assumption is that has to do with end of the year type prep
Okay.
work that they
So
were
it's,
doing.
you know, end of the year, and then this next one would be a monthly charge then, or?
I don't know if that's monthly or annual, Beata, do you know?
Yes, so we have a contract with them, as Dan had alluded. Now, that's that fixed cost, and we get charged that every month. In addition to that, we get charged for any additional work that they do. For example, writing report or getting us ready for year end. Those are charged per hour. So that is why you see those two invoices there. One is for the every month, our annual subscription. Is instead of paying it once a year, kind of like typical subscriptions are, they bill us every month for that. And the developer's time is separate.
Yeah, I keyed in on the additional charge to the same place, and that's why I thought I should bring it
Excellent
forward.
question. Thank you.
Okay, that's all for you guys. All right. And then if we go to I think 1260, this is in under placement transportation. And I'm going Mon Family Funeral Home, okay? I'm assuming this is moving a dead body, right? But I've never heard of Mon. I mean, where are they out of?
Is that for medical examiners? I'm sorry.
It is.
Yes. So typically if there is a transportation, we need to, I will need to look at the invoice, but typically transportation could be to the like a Ramsey County for forensics, or it could be a pickup body, transporting it to a funeral home. So there's a lot of other reasons why they would transport a body.
Okay, I'm just not familiar with the Mon Family Funeral Home. I don't know where they're out of. Yeah.
Rochester.
Red Wing, Rochester area.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, it was just an unfamiliar name. I figured I'd ask about it.
Excellent question. We
All
appreciate
right,
attention to the detail.
yep. And I'm seeing under 1250, a few more pages after that, I see two highlighted: emergency planning, cell phone, identical charge, Celico partnership. I didn't know if this was highlighted for some reason, other than the fact that maybe it's a total of 9144. First listing under 1250.
On that one, I would have to get back to you if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So they actually are not one is the total. So the one, if you're referring for 9144. So
Yes.
Yeah. So the first one is actually the Celico partnership charge of 9144, and then the second highlighted piece is the total.
Okay, all right.
So they just happen to have only one
one item. now?
Transactional entry this time around, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And that's
unusual.
that's Verizon.
Thank you, Chris.
Teleco is Verizon. Yep.
Okay. All right, and I'm seeing multiple entries for prisoner uniforms and operating supplies for Bob Barker Company. Under 1270. Under the jail.
Well, you certainly know who Bob Barker is.
Well, I'm kind of wondering, when did he change business? You know?
I think they went with them because the price is right.
I think two people set us up on that one.
We're talking highlights here. Anyway, just kind of wondering who they were and what they did. I see prison uniforms and then operating supplies.
I will check.
Okay. And also in the jail, maintenance contract, Tango Incorporated. And then maintenance contract for 7412 Access Security Incorporated. Both of these for around $7,000.
Access security. All right, I'll check, I'll follow up on those as well.
All right. And
Yep, this is Beata. There was a question about their uniforms and operating supplies. So
Yes.
typically, those inmates. Was it, yeah, it wasn't for inmates. I was trying to get into SAP, but I'm not being successful. But I recall you said it was inmates uniforms. So those are wear and tear, and typically they would buy bulk and put them on the shelf for use. So this is not a monthly reoccurring type of an expense.
okay. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And then also now on here 1520 operating supplies, Eider Flag Manufacturing Company, $155, and then a few lines later we see other expense for $39.80 to Eider Flag Manufacturing Company. You know, I can understand $155 charge for a flag, but 4,000?
So this must be veterans, correct, cost center?
Yes, it's
Yes.
veteran services.
Right, because when I meet with them on a regular basis every month to review their financials. So that was one of the items that they buy in bulks as well. So this is not a monthly. We reviewed what their budget expense was, and they went ahead and purchased these flags as the budget, granted that they had a surplus. So, they're really mindful as to what they purchase in bulks, depending on where they might end the year. So if he had enough funds there that's within what was budgeted, then he will make that bulk purchase. And those are flags.
Flags.
And not
And he
one flag.
sells them. They're,
And-
that you
Right.
can buy them.
And we do have the veteran service officer here this evening or this
Oh,
afternoon.
we do.
I'd
I'm
like to
sorry.
hear from him, yes.
Sure.
He probably knows. If he doesn't, who does? Right?
Good afternoon. So that the flag purchased and that larger amount of $4,000, that is a Memorial Day flag purchase in preparation because of timeliness with logistics and stuff to be prepared for May 31st. We have volunteers that put out over 4,000 flags. Those are the 12 by 18.
Does it go
That-
on all the grave sites?
Correct. Yep. And so that's why that's a higher purchase, where typically, and what county manager had kind of alluded to, we do sell flags. Those are smaller purchases also from Eider Flag, that 3x5, 4x6, 5x8 that we sell out of our office. Pretty minimal numbers, but that's kind of the explanation on that larger flag purchase for Eider Flag.
Okay, not a problem. This is gonna be
The large dollar amount, yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And national under 1420, probably about top of the page. This is under extension. It says postage for $298.90, and this is to National Business Furniture. And somehow those things didn't click in my mind. I just wonder how postage and furniture go together.
I would speculate that it was a loading postage onto a machine that generates postal marks on envelopes, but we don't have anyone from extension here, so.
I remember this coming up one other time. I don't know if it was in this committee or it may have been in my committee that oversees extension and having that same question, and I don't remember the answer.
Okay, anyway, just, okay, wait a minute, gotta ask.
I will follow up.
All right, and then I see under 1910, health insurance, I see a total here of 1.1 million. I'm assuming this is 2 months worth of expenses.
So that's partially probably some claims from November and some from December, but I will say that claims from December that were not anticipated. So you see those two line items under claims, med RX, those are true claims numbers. I will say that we do expect to receive some that hasn't come through yet. It just takes a couple months to receive. So we will have that as revenue to get back to the account.
Just out of curiosity, how much are you expecting on a stop loss basis? Beth?
I'm certain on those numbers, but I think that for that higher claim line, the 397,000, I think we were asking $8,000 reimbursement. No, that would have been simply for an individual that hit the stop loss limit. And then I'd have to look on that next round of claims to be certain.
Yeah, just curious there. I just seemed like a number, that's all.
Yes, yep.
And, two other questions here also, and this is under 51. Having to do with garbage removal for $104, and this is to Dunn Energy Cooperative, which seems a little out of place. And then also down on transit, I see under 6100 garbage removal, 4557 for Northern States Power. I didn't think these two entities were in the garbage business, so I was wondering what that's about.
I'll check.
Okay, recycling?
Like light bulbs or something similar to that, but I don't know. So,
All right, that's all I got. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Good to go?
Good. Thank you.
Okay, next item then, we need to, we don't need to approve, I guess we want to form it, but I'll ask you to do it. Okay, seconded, Mr. Zahn and Mr. Lino, all in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Thanks, Mike. Okay, resolution to amend the pay grade placement for the veteran specialist, that was in your, packet again. Anyone, please want to address that for us? HR or veterans?
Jenna, are you?
Sure, I can speak to that. I think chime in with something that I missed, but the veteran service officer had reached out to county manager and I to revisit the evaluation of the veteran specialist position. That was grade K, and that was placed as a result of the class and comp study that was implemented in 2022. The areas that we had reviewed on evaluation were regarding challenges, problem solving, decision making and impact, interactions, communications, work environment, and also just formal preparation, including experience and education. When we had reviewed that, we were able to officer and determined that a few areas in the evaluation were an increase in the actual evaluation score, specifically with the challenges and communications required to perform the job. So as a result of that, we are recommending to change the grade placement from grade J to grade K for 2023. Results in an anticipated impact to the budget. The veteran service officer has stated that he's able to absorb any additional cost within the budget for tentatively.
Yeah, yes, financially, we here's the county service officer, and actually just sent off things to start funds from office. I just signed that last week. We were able to receive over $15,000 over a 2-year period. So, and again, the increase is a very minimally anticipated amount. That brings everything of that to bring in line both in internal positions of the same kind within the county as well as externally within our adjacent cohorts, which with county veteran service officers, those differences is veteran specialist is not required to be a veteran. So when you see an assistant CVSO, they are required to be a veteran. We just don't require that. And it's kind of there's exceptional responsibility to look at those positions. So it's nice to be able to have an opportunity to have an in-depth discussion about those responsibilities. But the budgetary, we're able to absorb a minimal increase on that.
And it's $65.60 for the difference in grade placement for the year.
So that is listed in the budget impact as far as the resolution is concerned. So that's thorough. We'll have to be passing this on. So it is a resolution that would go forward to the county board. That anyone care to make that motion? Pass forward. Supervisor Bauer, second by Supervisor Lino. Okay, hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
This is your decision.
My understanding is an amendment to the big would go to the board in the form of a resolution.
So we'll see you again later. All right, our third item under 6 here is increases. In your packet was information going back to when one of our former county managers was here, and what was developed, I guess originally as some rules in which govern the use of county credit cards, setting limits of use, and then an overall budget that was set up in terms of a credit limit with River Bank, I believe is
yes,
correct. And so the ask here, or the question here, is to increase some of those limits, and that again information is in your packet. Maybe who would like to cover that? Chris or Jenna? You want to care to speak to that?
So the reason why all the history is included in this document was because it took about half a day to compile all of the bits and pieces from all the places where information was archived and we actually put it all in one spot for the next person coming forward who said, how did we get to this point in time? So that's the reason for the kind of the lengthy history. The DOE is fairly straightforward. Times have changed and the distance that dollar amounts go has shortened, and we routinely encounter their credit limit, particularly the managers are often the case. So I think I gave you the example in the benefits program, which is as a manager and part of the medications treatment in jail requires the purchase by a credit card from a drug company of an injectable medication. So those charged to my account. Because two injections at $1,200 each maxes now. So this is just by a little more capacity. Jared is correct. Our accounts are through Bremer with someone who monitors the amounts. There are a lot of people who never get close to a credit limit, but some people who make arrangements for travel. So in the Department of Human Services, there are managers support people who make travel arrangements for staff, and they will somewhat regularly bump up against for the period of time for people who don't know how to do that. So this is a request to change those limits to reflect how far a dollar goes these days.
Just a question. When these charges are made, obviously each department has got credit cards. Does Beata and her staff also monitor that, or is that done through her? Do they break that out by department or?
No, those invoices all, or those charges all come, and Sarah's having no processes, those at the actual reconcile the make sure there's an approval, there's a receipt, and then credit card payments, so that's all in proper line.
So this is Beata. This is our current practice. The motion is prepare more tighter controls around P cards and prepare operational policies and procedures around P cards. And at later time, shortly after all the management and finance is in agreement as to what's expected, how this is going to work, is then implement more of an internal audit process that will take place at a future state, at least quarterly, to then review and prepare this operational policy and if there is a compliance. So it is not intended to replace any existing county ordinances in reference to P cards, but this would be an operational policy and procedure around controls and seeing if everything is being followed as far as the ordinances and the operational policy.
After doing that, Beata, would you be able to, we talked about a quarterly update on finances. Do you think that would be appropriate to be passed on to this committee?
Absolutely. That's an excellent question. That was the intent, is to then report the process of how this internal audit will be conducted. Usually in a sample, it will be drawn on a random sample. So I need to draft process around that, then review that with the department head and begin some training and then execute. So that might take a while. I might not be able to make it by the first quarter of the semester, but that's in the works. I can certainly make that priority if we're working something on the first quarter in March. But it takes some time to draft operational policy, review with all the departments, management. So it is an undertaking which everybody is on. It's not a very robust operational policy if nobody knows that it's there. It's hard to hold anyone accountable. But this is not only about accountability, but it's also to validate the integrity of them, that their intent to be made, and that they follow the procedures.
Every transaction must have the receipt that's associated with it.
That would be part of that operational policy.
And attached to the transaction. How many days where you just got credit card go and submit?
Yeah, and part of the operational policy also will be what's an acceptable receipt. Transmittal receipt is not sufficient. We need more supporting documentation that will justify that it's a county business, but an itemized receipt or invoice or a purchase with all the appropriate approvals. If it exceeds certain dollar amounts, as management, we might then given the limit. You won't be expecting that somebody will be using a P card to make a $10,000 or $15,000 purchase. But the random selection will be based on dollar vendors. So there's got to be methodology in place as far as how is the sample going to be selected.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't think we necessarily need to rush it for the.
I would say since this is the first batch of cookies that we've maybe wait till the quarter.
Well, if anything, I can continue giving you an update on the policies and procedures.
I know that this is related, but it's tangentially related. What Yara is working on at this point in time, currently, is a protocol as well, so that there's some uniformity across the county in terms of how money is received, and then deposited. So she's been working on that. That was the audit firms identified as an area that they want to focus in on.
So my first project was around gift cards. So we are in the very end phase of actually uses the department that uses P cards, their management, their staff. We had a meeting on yesterday on the 25th, where I went through in fine detail of this operational policy. We've created logs. How are we going to track them? Who's going to be approving? How do we go about making sure that there's a separation of duties? This is around controls. And then also in there, it does also mention that there's going to be an internal audit. An internal audit means it's going to be every quarter too, but that too will fall into that operational audit internal process. And that includes gift cards, P cards, and things we make to vendors. So my goal is that this internal audit is done every quarter in those three areas. And I base those projects on priorities as the highest risk. So cash handling, we are actually in phase 1. And phase 1, meaning that I do a review with each department, understanding how they handle cash. And I compare that with best practice. It's best practice, but it might not be a one size fits all because of the various departments and their unique practices. But ultimately, the goal is to adapt what is that controls. So the first phase is to learn how each department handles their cash. Then the second phase would be to first draft of operational policy, and then the other process would be to go back to department heads. And then I also created a work group that right now I have 52 participants throughout the county. That includes management, department heads, and staff. And this work group is going to do that scrutiny of that final document. And that work group is also the one that I will be training since they're at the front line. And then there will be a phase where we finalize it and then we execute and set a date. When are we going to start doing that? So I do this process for every operational policies and procedure. And there's quite a bit on my radar. There's petty cash, also identifying which department is having petty cash and should we have petty cash? What are the risks? So for example, when we did the gift cards is a risk too. So we've looked at how every department that deals with gift cards, how they are handled, how are they distributed. Anywhere from understanding what might be the taxation liability that perhaps department were not aware of. So this really helped us collaboratively learn from each other, and finance is able to become that partner with that department system in that process. So again, we went and we recreated logs and recreated the process, and we're ready to go what I call live on the 13th of February. A lot of exciting stuff.
I guess. In the world of finance. All right. Any other questions about this? If not, anyone care to increasing the requested credit card limits again for department heads, and the chair and board of supervisors would go up to $10,000 from 5 for managers and supervisory personnel. They would go from 2,500 to 5,000, and for all other credit card holders within the county from 1,000 to 2,500. And that would be anything that is asked for us to approve. Any more discussion? If not,
If possible, this is Beata, if I could,
Sorry, yeah.
may I?
Sure.
I just want you to know too, that now with this increase, the selection criteria would be to raw a sample with those high transactions, including those that could exceed 10,000, if somebody were to go just make that one purchase, because that's what their limit is.
Okay. Any other questions? Supervisor Leno?
And so just so I'm clear, so that the county manager would have a $60,000 limit.
Well, we haven't changed the previous one.
That's currently set at
75, I believe, and the audit is 60. The CFO is 60, I believe, yes, and the county manager is 7,000.
Okay, and then the other limits will be what you stated earlier.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and those elements we increased, remember, during COVID, we found out that really helped us out to have the ability to buy that with a. Okay, any other questions about that? All right, hearing none. Someone
Make a motion to approve those credit card limit increases.
All right,
As stated.
second by Supervisor Leno, and motion was made by Supervisor Zahn. Any other questions? Being none, all in favor, excuse me, all in favor of increasing those limits, as stated, aye. Any opposed? All right, passes. Okay, on consideration, resolutions ordinance to the county board from the committee on administration, 2023 budget adjustment, and again was included by the director, that department. You want to speak on that?
Sure, this is Sarah.
Sarah.
The resolution. We had an opportunity in 2023 to ask for more state funding for treatment alternatives and diversion grant. The state budget about $25 million towards this state program. So these additional funds will be used to for staffing. We're going to have a dedicated coordinator for the program, and then to enhance really the program and to expand and reach more individuals that would be eligible for this diversion, essentially treatment alternative diversion to the criminal justice system. So I have our award of that grant.
Okay, and supervisors, that total is 167 or 166,577. And if you look in your, Sarah broke that down as she stated for the different areas: salary and wages, employee benefits, travel, operating supplies, and some contractual consulting was also added in there. That's what she was going to divvy it up. That. If not, someone make the motion to make this budget adjustment, pass it on to the board.
I'll be happy to make that budget adjustment, resolution.
Okay, and seconded by Supervisor Bauer. Motion. Any other questions or concerns? Hearing none, all in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, we'll pass that on. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you for looking at this.
Thank you.
The next meeting of this committee is scheduled to be Thursday, February 23rd, 2023, and we again pending any other issues at 3:00 in the afternoon. Any pertinent announcements by anybody for us?
I just have one announcement. I heard, not necessarily affecting our government in Dunn County here, but I heard that in the southern counties that they're having like almost an emergency scenario where they're losing at a very rapid rate to the private industry at this particular time. Like district attorneys, assistant district attorneys, Rock County being one, that they don't have a district attorney at this particular time. I was just wondering, making that little bit of news available to us in administration here. I think it's something that might be, we kind of keep our ear to the ground a little bit about that kind of stuff.
I told the office here had a vacancy for an assistant DA that was a long time unfilled, but it was filled, and I think they're up to full staff here now. But I do know other counties are still having a hard time getting additional assistant DAs.
Yeah, I think I'm aware of that little bit of news I caught this weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Again, remember our next meeting. We are adjourned. Thank you all. Stop recording.